What's up, guys? I am James Baney, and I am here to talk to you about something that I'm very excited about because I just got done playing the latest Metal Gear game, and I was just so excited because it was one of those stories that, hold on. Oh, you know what? Actually, it was an episode of The Bad Batch. Now, I know you've already seen the episode because this is a spoiler thing, but how could one possibly confuse Metal Gear Solid and that entire franchise with The Bad Batch? I mean, you have this Bad Batch episode where there's a lone warrior on a mission, you know, kind of getting older, possibly being replaced. He's a tool of the government, and there's this line of where, like, there's a morality to being a soldier and being an individual, and all right, okay, I see it now. I see how now you could get confused between Metal Gear and this episode of The Bad Batch. I think, too, this is probably the first time that I've noticed that even the style, and this could be just general, like, fighting military style or something along those lines, but I really felt like there was something to this episode that felt like it was mimicking that Metal Gear style. Maybe it's just also too that it's like out in the cold and it was lone and open, and there's like kind of other soldiers walking around and you're chasing after them and taking them down and stuff. I don't know. There was something about the sneaking aspect of it, while again, like you're in the middle of this like a cold place, which I think is very reminiscent of some of the Metal Gear games, specifically some scenes and locations that you visit. But I just felt right in place, being a fan of the Metal Gear franchise, now to watch this episode of The Bad Batch, because there's so many comparisons, like I was hinting at a minute ago. Like, you do sort of attach with Crosshair in the sense as a Solid Snake style character. Very loner, very follow the book, very do my mission no matter what the government says. And then somewhere along the lines realizing that he's kind of on his own and he's only being used as a tool, and maybe the people that are either his enemy or, you know, I guess in this case it is people on his side, but it's sort of like how the Empire's pushing out the clones. It's these other people that he didn't want to be sides with, be on the same side as, has now sort of become a little bit more realistic at saying, you know what, maybe and that's including the Bad Batch, Clone Force 99. I think he's starting to rethink that the bad guys are maybe onto something, and I think that's a very important message here for Crosshair and where I think all of this is going. But let's talk a little bit about this episode, because I just want to mention some of the good guys and bad guys and talk a little bit about the dynamic there. First and foremost, who doesn't hate Nolan? What a crappy character. And I don't mean even in the sense of like, oh, you know, they wrote this character to be this thing and he's supposed to be bad and that's the point. I feel like it's such a cliche that it's almost unbelievable. I didn't like him, not because he was a bad person or bad character, but because he was legitimately written poorly. I know he's supposed to be like that, but sometimes when characters are so one note, they don't even remotely seem believable. It's kind of weak, in my opinion. There were things that this character was saying that I thought, you know, a person can feel that way, a person can do that, but it's, I don't know, it just doesn't really feel like that it's realistic. Sometimes I think the Empire, even at times, just is so blatantly the bad guys that they miss that message that they've been trying to do for years, which is like, well, they're not all bad guys, or like there's some realistic sense to it. And I feel like some Star Wars content has done that, but for the most part, you'll still run into these situations pretty often where the bad guys are just like, I just want to be bad, and it's good to be bad, and it's like they're not really giving you any reason why a person might think that or feel that way. Because obviously anybody who's watching it would just go, no, that's bad, right? It's very obvious. There's not a back and forth with those characters. So I really didn't like Nolan. I think he was terrible. But I do really like when Crosshair got to that point at the end of the episode and he just kills him. That was awesome. And I thought that was exactly what Crosshair needed to do. And it's kind of what everybody was feeling in the episode. So in a way, I kind of like that they went that route with this Nolan character because they needed Crosshair to be able to kill that character. And if they gave him any sort of sympathy or realistic tendency, maybe it wouldn't go over so well. I don't know. It's just, he was very one note, and I feel like they probably handled him the right way, honestly. And then on the other hand, we have Mayday, who I loved a lot. I love when they just do something as simple as adding a beard on a clone, because it just gives this character backstory, character development that you can immediately sort of picture what's been going on this base, this outpost. And you know that the way he talks with Nolan and even with Crosshair, that he's very wise to the situation that they're in. Now, granted, he does make a lot of what seem to be like rookie mistakes, but I think that's to build up Crosshair a little bit as Crosshair finds some of the secrets. And it's like, how long have you guys been here and you didn't know that, you know? And I think Crosshair points out, like, how long have you been here protecting this cargo and you just don't know what's going on in it? I thought you were supposed to be the character that's supposed to show me that an individual is to kind of rise above the greater empire here. But here, Mayday was following the rules the whole time. So a little bit tricky on that regard. But what I will say is I like the character and I like the process of Mayday and Crosshair connecting on that level, so that when we finally get to that point where Crosshair picks him up and decides to carry that baggage, that extra dead weight, if you will, which is a reference obviously to the line he said earlier where, you know, don't let me die on your watch, because he's not going to carry a body. It's all of this that Crosshair has been going through has in some ways felt like it's all happening kind of quick. But remember, it's been a long time since we've seen episodes of Crosshair. Maybe it would be good to have shown us a little bit of this and watch him move a little bit more. But, you know, there's been so many episodes that we've seen Crosshair still feeling like he's borderline on which side to choose. He always inevitably ends up choosing the Empire, but this would be the episode where he's drawn the line in the sand and he's saying, I'm going to kill someone from the Empire and arrest me or do whatever. But I think now that he has been moved to this facility and, you know, they're trying to keep him alive and stuff, I think now there's something special that they're looking at with him. They want to keep him alive. But he has, in my opinion, crossed that line and said, I have decided I do not want to be with the Empire anymore. I don't want to be associated with it. And I think that's a big step forward for this show, this character, and this season. That being said, this was episode 12. We have episode 13, which I imagine will reunite us with the Bad Batch. We'll get another Bad Batch episode. But episode 14 is titled Tipping Point. And I think that while this could have been his tipping point, I think it could possibly be, and this is just speculation on my part, you know, maybe I'm already disproving myself, but Tipping Point is an episode that could be Crosshair's journey back to the Bad Batch and kind of rejoining them, which is all leading up to this season's finale, which in my opinion makes a lot of sense to have them come back together. I'm just not really sure at this point where we're going and the direction of like who the big bad is and what the big mission is going to be for that season finale. And what else is interesting is that as of yesterday, Star Wars announced for Star Wars Celebration, on the Celebration stage, Monday's big event is the Bad Batch, which likely means we're going to get a recap of kind of what has happened this season from the point of view of the creators of the show. But also it could mean that we're getting the announcement of season 3. Now, I don't know exactly. I think they kind of botched their announcement last season. So they might end up announcing season 3 before the celebration thing, but I think that's a perfect opportunity for them if they wanted to take it to go ahead and say, oh, that was season 2. And then at celebration, which is only like 2 weeks later or something, probably even less than that, is to say, we're doing it. We're doing season 3. Here's a trailer. Here's a teaser. You just fit. I mean, I think that would be like back to back. Really good idea on their part. But that's about it. That's all I can really say for this episode. I'm sure there's lots more discussion that we could get into. If you guys want to put things in the comment, let's talk a little bit about more of how this has a deeper meaning. It does, but we're kind of trying to keep it short. But that's the episode then for this week. And make sure to leave the comments and the likes and the subscribes and do all that stuff. And we'll see you next week for another episode of the Bad Batch Reaction Show as we talk about episode 13 and head our way to the finale. Until then, I'll see you later.